Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sands of Time, an end of life journey and beyond video series. My name is Susan Capurso, and I'd like to introduce Lisa Strauss Lawrence today.
Hi, Susan. It's good to see you again
You as
and
well.
onward with our journey. So, today we're going to continue talking about after the person is gone. And this is called moving on with your life. So, I'd like to focus on the journey. Really interesting word because it means so many things to different people, but it is your journey. And everybody is guided by who they are, their personality, their environment, and of course, the circumstances of that death and even the relationship with that person. Now, we can talk about a lot of similarities with people, the general grief and all the things that we talked about just in the bereavement process. But the journey itself becomes such an individual thing for everybody. And so those differences become unique for each person going through your own way. And I think we have to make sure that people understand that and accept that so that they feel more comfortable with what they're going through. So let's talk a little bit about the circumstances and the relationship. You look back, and sometimes there's a really good relationship. So when you think about that person, there's really a lot of positive memories, which is really nice. And so the path of moving on is filled more with, oh, how wonderful it was when we did this, and all the memories that we have of doing whatever it was. And it's a really positive kind of thing. Obviously, you miss the person, and obviously, life is not the same, but there's those feelings, those residual feelings of happiness when you think about that person and you think about the memories, which is what you can do when you celebrate that person. Now, if there was a negative relationship, what comes up is anger sometimes, hurt sometimes, and maybe unfinished business. And that becomes more of a problem as you're trying to move on. I wish I had done this. I wish I had said this. I wish that they had done this. I wish our relationship, and unfortunately, some people get caught up in that and can't go on. And those things have to be worked out because in order to really celebrate and create your new life, you have to be in a place where you can finish that other part. So that is an issue. Go ahead.
And Lisa, and people have to know too, right, that every relationship that we have in our lives right now with the living, right, every relationship's different. So I have a handful of friends, and every friendship is different in its own way. So when you have a need to cry on somebody's shoulder or just to vent, or you know which particular friend to call because you have a little bit of a different relationship, that relationship is going to be much different than your spouse, than your parent, than an aunt, than a niece.
Yes.
They're all so different. So the variety of emotions that are involved with each relationship is so different.
Yes, that's
So
true.
different.
That's true. And talking about relationships, now you think about who that person was to you and what a difference in how you're going to move on with your life as well. So let's just talk about a spouse. Here you are sharing your whole life with that spouse, and you believe that you would grow old with that person, and now you're not. And so you have to refigure your whole life. You had thought about retirement. You thought about all the things you were going to be doing. You were going to travel. You were going to buy a second home, a vacation home. All those things now are gone. And now you have to create your whole new life. What will I do? Where will I live? What do I want? The wants before were a couple want, and now you're an individual. And that's a real different orientation and a real different way of thinking about your life. It's big, it's huge. And that is the challenge of that
Right. And
journey.
it's with every moment, every occasion.
Yes.
When my husband passed, my boys don't have children yet. So just the idea that they're not going to have grandma and grandpa, that's a big thing in itself. I'll be by myself and they'll have just grandma, but it's every little thing like that in your life.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about a child. Now, that's the most horrific tragedy to even think about losing a child because you're supposed to go first. And so, all those hopes and dreams that you had for that child are gone now. And that's why they have groups like Compassionate Friends that, at least people who are going through the same thing. I don't know what it's like to lose a child, but unimaginable, truly.
There's
Um,
another as well, the Cope Foundation, that I'm very friendly with here
okay.
on Long Island, and they do magnificent work. And you really need the help and support
Yeah.
when you go through something like this, and when you can be with other families, who have gone through the experience. It's really, really, really helpful.
Yes. Yes. And then a parent. Now it's interesting because people say that when you lose a parent, you feel like an orphan. And I read a few books about that, the adult orphan. And because you've lost now that link that you had, the person who brought you up, the person who raised you, the person who you shared so much of your life with, as you were growing up. And so that's a whole nother feeling, losing a parent.
It
I
is,
lost,
and in itself, it's different for some people, and then for other people. I've had friends my age that lost a parent that they were so close to their mom. Just say it's the mom,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So close that they spent every day with them. They shopped with them. They spent all their time together. They were on the phone all day long. And then you might have a parent sibling, child relationship where you're not that close.
yes, yes.
So it's going to be different feelings for each kind of relationship.
Absolutely. And that's the same idea with a grandparent. Some people are very close to their grandparents. That's a very special relationship. And, that person who is not direct parent one away. So you might tell that person, your grandparents, different things. You might be sharing different things. You might be going different places. And so that grandparent might be a very, very special person in your life. And again, all those memories of that person and the life you shared. Or it could be somebody who you really weren't close to, and now you regret the fact, oh, I missed out on. I wish I had had somebody who was a little bit more loving or a little bit more positive, whatever it was. And so those kinds of relationships obviously affect the journey. And the last one is
Sure.
a sibling. I'm an only child. I have no idea what it would have been like to lose a sibling. Okay. But there are people who have. And again, that
I've lost
biological,
two recently, Lisa, my sister and brother.
wow,
Two
wow,
totally separate reasons.
wow,
Yeah, and they were both younger than me,
mm,
much younger than me. Yeah,
wow.
both left children behind, 3 children and 4 children. And it's amazing. But yeah, go ahead with the sibling.
Yes. So trying to sort out now your life without sharing the rest of your life with that sibling, without sharing the different family things with that sibling. Again, another journey, another set of feelings. Were you close to that sibling? Was this somebody who you always talked to? Was it somebody who you wish you had been closer to? All those things affect how you're going to deal with somebody not being there anymore.
And don't forget about a work associate, maybe, or a neighbor.
Or a friend, or a
They're
friend. How
all
about a
different
friend? How about a childhood friend that you grew up with,
right,
and you say, I can't believe it. And of course, now it's closer to you because it's somebody who you grew up with. And you're
right.
thinking, hey, we were supposed to share our lives together and talk with each other and and be together. And that person's no longer there, which also now brings back to, well, hey, that could happen to me too. That's closer because
You start to, when you have loss in your life like that, you start to realize how short life is
yes,
when we start to see people pass. And, for example, I never had loss in my life. Never. I felt so lucky and
wow,
blessed that I didn't have loss in my life. And then within a 2-year period, 14 people.
that's unbelievable. And I did have early loss in my life, quick loss in my life. So, our experiences again relate to who we are. our personality, which I'm going to talk about in a little while as well. But everybody and every situation brings about different feelings and your different attachments with different people.
Right.
Now let's talk about circumstances. So circumstances also affect the journey itself and how you look at things. Okay. So truly, how did that person die? I look at sudden death. All right. I look at two people in my life who died, one of a car accident and one of a heart attack. Neither of them, anticipated it. Sudden death. We didn't anticipate. And here's the thing. So you feel like you didn't get to say goodbye. I feel very deprived. My father's on vacation and I spoke to him the night before and he sounded tired, but that was it. I didn't get to say goodbye to him. But the other part of me, he didn't suffer. And he always said to me, I don't want to suffer. I don't want a disease where I'm suffering for years. I don't want to start becoming debilitated. He actually died the way he wanted to die, though he was only 57, and my biological mother, I mean, what a tragedy, 26 years old and pregnant, tragedy. So that affects how you're going to journey, how you're going to feel about going on, so if there was a long sickness, okay, my mom, my adopted mom and my husband, okay, so now you look at suffering, okay, and you don't want people who you love to suffer, okay, but you get to say goodbye. You plan the goodbye, you plan the things that you want to do, you plan what's important to you, you go through a process that can be a celebration of life, which is what we talk about. So those things and those circumstances are going to affect how we again continue our journey as we think about what happened to the people who we loved.
Now, my first passing was my husband, as you know, and it was the flu. So that was unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
But from the minute we got into the emergency room, he was intubated, and that was for 55 days.
Wow.
So I begged and I prayed the whole thing the first night, do not take him tonight. I needed some time for my boys and I, and to get used to the idea. And over 55 days, it was a long time. But I have to say, that we kind of got used to the idea because it was a little lengthy. I wouldn't want it longer than that because he was suffering, although he wasn't in pain or anything. He was just sleeping. They kept him sedated. Yeah. But I felt like we had a little time. And when you don't have a little time, when you have no time like that, and it's overnight, one day here, the next day gone, that's tough too.
It is.
So tough. So there's so many circumstances.
Yeah. The other thing that really affects us, and this is our personality, there are people who are always glass half full. That's me. And then there are people who you meet that are always the glass half empty. They're always seeing, the cynical side or, the negative. And that affects now how you're going to respond to everything that happens in your life, but certainly the death of someone close to you or someone who you loved, and how you decide to approach your new life. Oh, woe is me. I don't think I have anything left in my life. I don't have a future, or you know what? This is a new opportunity for me. This is something, when you look at people who lose their jobs, you look at people who are sick, you look at people who have all kinds of circumstances in their lives, and we all respond differently depending upon who we are and also how we're raised, by the way. I mean, there are people who are raised in more positive environments, and so we deal with more things positively. So that's going to affect how we look at things, how we respond, and what happens to us as well with this. Because again, back to the idea, this is really your journey, and all those things that we mentioned is going to affect how you respond and what you do in the process.
That's right.
That's the journey. So let's go back to cherishing the past. Memories never die, and there are ways of keeping the memories alive. So first of all, we all acknowledge that we may need help, that we may need people who understand our situations, and our friends are wonderful and our families are wonderful too. But to be honest with you, for me, Support groups meant that they really understood. They walked in my shoes. They were there. All the time that my husband was sick with pancreatic cancer, I went to cancer care. And that was a support group for people, family members and friends whose, loved ones were going through cancer. And we could scream, we could yell, we could be angry, whatever we felt, and not feel guilty.
It's
That
comforting. It is
yeah.
comforting.
Yes. Now, other people say they're depressing. I don't want to hear other people upset. So it is a very personal decision. But again, support groups are there to be able to help you grieve and be able to make you feel that you're not alone in the feelings that you have. So that's obviously an option. Your one-to-one counseling, we both offer it because we know that everybody is different and that there are individual needs to just get through sometimes, just go to the next day, just try and figure out how to cope. And again,
Right.
everybody's different in
Right.
those needs. So you and I, of course, do that as well. Activity groups, there comes a time where you just want to be with people who may not be couples anymore, or who may not know your background, new people, new things
Yeah.
to do.
You don't have
And
to talk about it. You don't
yeah,
have to get into your story.
right,
It's just fresh and light.
right. So that's a really nice opportunity for you. And then, of course, I'd mentioned before the online memorial, to be able to add to it and be able to have a journal and pictures and things that you now can go to, have people sign up to, the guest book to write in there. I found out a lot of things about my husband that people said, I knew him from this. And it was really
Right.
nice to hear and see what they wrote. There's also pictures in it that you can add. So that's the Eternal Portal. That's the,
We're gonna do a
yes,
whole
we are.
video on that as well.
We are.
And also a few other things regarding the journey. You will be eventually celebrating their life in some small ways yourself, and creating new memories along the way. So that's important part of your journey, to create these new memories. And pick out some occasions or holidays that were really special to the two of you, or doing something on a particular day of the month or day of the week. And continue to do that and honor and celebrate the person. And always remember, we talked about this before, but in family gatherings, right? And have conversations and always be bringing the person up in the moment,
Yes.
and let everybody learn to embrace that and talk about the way they were and the funny things that they did or said, because it feels good and
Yes.
it's comforting.
It
And that's
does.
part of your journey along the way as well. We were talking earlier about lighting a candle.
Yes.
Every morning I would get up and just light a candle here on the counter and just say a couple words or a little prayer. And that felt comforting for me. So there's many things that you can do to be grateful that they were in your life for so long,
Yes. Yes.
instead
And
of being
keeping them
sad.
there. That's right. And
Right.
keeping them there in the memory. It's like when my grandchildren always say to me, oh, yes, and Grandpa Fred would have done this.
Yeah,
And that's because we've talked about him.
that's right.
So he still lives with them and he still is in their minds, which is
My
really
husband's father passed when he was 16. But I got to tell you, my boys and I felt like we knew him, and we
wow.
never had an opportunity to know him because he would always talk about his dad and the things he did with his dad. And he can't wait to go to, and today's St. Patrick's Day. When I go to heaven, I'm going to have a green beer with my dad because we never got to have a beer together. Well, lo and behold, Jim passed on St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
And that was
Wow.
comforting to me, that little thing, to know that he crossed over to heaven at 9 o'clock in the morning, and his dad was waiting with a green beer for him on that day. So it's little things that are comforting.
So St. Patrick's Day is coming up on Wednesday. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you're going to do to celebrate that?
I try and have the corned beef and cabbage, but
Yes.
instead of making it, I try and go to an Irish pub or somewhere and have the meal, whether it's with my kids or not, with a girlfriend, just to, keep that going and to
Yeah.
have that beer that I don't
Yeah.
normally drink beer. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
it's just little things like that are important.
They are. They are.
So, Lisa, this was wonderful. Were you going to say something else just now?
Yeah. I was going to say that everybody needs to find their journey. And if you're helping somebody else, respect that other person, and and understand that it's going to be their own. There so many things are going to affect their journey, but to respect them and to love them and to keep that person really with them and in their hearts. So continuing to talk, continuing to ask, people don't want to ask, hey,
Yes,
what are they doing and how are you doing and all that. And
very important.
continue to reach out, continue to
I
reach
could
out to
be on a
people.
random phone call with a friend
Yes,
who will say, "Oh, remember when Jim used to do this or say that?" And I love that
me too, me
because
too,
they're acknowledging and talking about him.
me too.
It's not just in my head.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's
And
really
by the
nice.
way, I do continue that special holiday called the winter solstice. That was our holiday. And we have great traditions. And I've made other traditions now when you said create new, and I've made other traditions. That's my girls' night out. So you can really create some wonderful new things as you move on. And again, even though it's 12 years for me, I know 6 years for you, there are things that we still cherish and that still our tears come to our eyes, and we know that that person is still in our hearts. And though our lives look very different, really more different than I ever would have dreamed, um, that person is still very much a part of me and continues to be in
And just
everything I do.
remember, yeah, everybody, you have to remember this is really important that we're not talking about a journey that is over in a year.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
because it's not 6 years, it's 7 years for me, Lisa. And
Okay.
I feel like it hasn't even been two.
Well, and here, you want to hear this one? For me, it's like before Fred and after Fred. And so for me, it's different lives. They do AD and
Yeah,
BC, different life, whole different life because of
absolutely.
how many things have changed in my life and the new life that I have now. So, that other life that I had, wonderful. And I feel so excited about everything that happened in my life, raising our children and everything else. And then the life after that
That's right.
and the
So
new
you're
life.
embracing both.
Yes,
You
yes,
have to learn to be grateful and appreciative and embrace the old and embrace the new.
that's right.
And that's what we talk about a lot. This was really
Yeah,
informative. Thank you
yeah.
very much, Lisa, for
No,
all of
thank
that
you,
great
Susan.
information. We wanted to also mention that Brian Tully is an attorney that specializes in end of life paperwork that you need to have in order and in place. And he'll be with us, is it next week, Lisa?
No, I
What?
believe tomorrow,
Oh,
tomorrow,
we're
the
putting that
16th.
video together
Here
this
we are.
week.
We are.
Oh,
Yes,
wonderful. Okay, I
yes.
haven't looked at our schedule yet
And a
today.
lot of questions about documents and making sure that you have everything in order. So this should be very informative for
Right,
everybody.
so watch out for that. And we've just started to put together a series of ongoing end of life digital courses. So you can find those at eastend.academy. That's it, nice and simple,
Great,
eastend.academy. And it
great.
was great, Lisa, today.
Okay.
And we'll see you again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.